possible that I played with fire a little too much as a child. I don't know what to say. So the smoker wasn't a tool that I was particularly interested in. I got it. But it turns out that my wife was curious about how this exactly worked as well. So when you started asking about it, I thought we'd do a video. First, let's take a look at what the smoker itself actually looks like and how it functions. Okay, so here is the smoker. And I don't know the exact wording that's used, or the terminology, so as I try to describe the nomenclature of this, if you're a professional beekeeper, feel free to comment below and say, hey Jared, that thing you called a doohickey, it's actually called a this, or so on. And forgive me as I just do my best here. First thing you'll notice, the cage itself is probably a pretty obvious feature of this. It's like a heat shield to make sure that you don't bump anything sensitive like your own uncovered hand right up against the chamber, because this is what's going to become piping hot. So this is a way for you to make sure that you don't bump directly into it. And while I have yet to see anybody actually use it as such, it seems to me that this is about the perfect distance for this hook to sit right on the edge of the hive. So it's a good place to keep it up off the ground and easily to reach. And then of course you got a little handle here so that you can open up the lid, and then you have the bellows for actually pushing air into the smoking chamber. So if you look at the bottom here, you may be able to see that there is a gap. The bellows don't connect directly into the chamber where the fire is smoldering. The bellows blow air into the chamber. And I believe that this is a good design so that air is able to go in while you're not using it and keep the fire lit. And then the bellows just provide that burst of air that's needed, either to help the embers continue burning or to actually push the smoke that's been building up inside the chamber out of the nozzle. So we've got a nice little handle here so we don't burn ourselves. And on the inside, it's probably going to be impossible for me to give you a wonderful view of this, but down at the very bottom there is a grate, a floor that's perforated so that where the air is blown in through the outside down here by the bellows, that is beneath the perforated area, so that you can keep air coming under the fire and then out through the top of the chamber. And that's just good fire mechanics. I mean, that's how I've built a fire ever since I was in Cub Scouts. So, I mean, it's just good design. So, what we're trying to do is make a fire in here that will slowly burn so that we can then let smoke build up in this chamber and then push smoke out through the nose and use that smoke to mask the scents that the guard bees put out so that the bees don't decide they want to come and attack us. So, what are we going to do inside here? Let's talk about that next. As I was reading through the beekeeping book that was recommended to me, it talks about starting a fire in a traditional way, starting with a very easy to ignite source like crumpled up newspaper, and then slowly adding on incrementally larger kindling until you reach something about the size and diameter of your thumb, and then using that base as your coals almost, and then putting something on top like a natural fiber twine that will slowly burn and not be toxic to the bees. When I received my tool, the gentleman at the local Beekeepers Association said that he likes to use either burlap, which was recommended in the book, or he even uses cut up pieces of old denim jeans. Now in that first video where you saw me first inspect the hive, that's what I was using, was the denim jeans, and I could not for the life of me keep that lit. So I remembered something that I read in the book that I have in abundance, and that would be pine straw. I have pine tree needles in abundance. I live in a mixed forest. I have plenty of coniferous and deciduous trees, and the pine trees that drop their needles, I'm standing just on an abundance of it. And it didn't take much to add to the chamber, and it stayed lit for a good half an hour before I decided I wanted to try to put it out. There was still plenty of material left, and I don't know how long it would have gone for, but I imagine more than I would ever have needed, especially for just a small backyard hive. So let me show you how it starts. So this is an area right on the edge of the forest. You can tell it's getting enough light during the day that some of these plants are starting to come up. There's plenty of other areas I could walk you to where we would see nothing but pine needles, but we don't need to do all that. We can just come right here. I'm all about 10 feet from my hive, and I can just take up some of this material, and I'm going to do nothing more than just bunch it up, twist it together a little bit to break it up. And you know, one thing that surprised me, I'll say this, is that pine needles burn like crazy. And if you want to start a fire quick, and if you've got the right kind of kindling on there so that the heat of the initial blast of lighting pine needles on fire, that the kindling will catch, and the pine needles are just a great initial burn. They smoke like crazy, but they will die off very fast. So I was surprised when I started this fire last time just how long it stayed lit. I thought that I might get 5 minutes out of it and the thing would die off, but it didn't seem to be true. My can here is not even a quarter full, and I really don't think I need to put too much more than that in there. I'm going to put a little bit more in just for the sake of not having to come back, and I have enough of this that, you know, if I have leftovers, I can add it into my compost, and I'm not worried about running out of materials. I'm not using something I have to go and purchase to fill this, so why not put a little bit more in? It's not going to go to waste. So with the material in there, we're going to do nothing more than just strike a match. Give your match enough time to get some of the wood burning a little bit so it doesn't go out if you get it too far in there. And let it burn enough to really make sure that those needles are going. You can give a few puffs of air through the bellows. And right about there, I'm just going to close the lid. And that's it. That's all I'm going to do to keep my smoker going. I'm going to give it a minute or two to make sure that the flames have died off so that I know that my smoke is cool to the touch. See, I can hold my hand right here and it's warm. I mean, no, it's smoke. It's going to be warm. But this is not anything that, you know, when we put 1 or 2 puffs under the top of the hive and let it saturate the hive, there's no heat damage that's going to come from this. So you can see that it's drawing air from the bottom, and it's a bit of a breezy day, so that's why we're getting the effect that we are. But it's building smoke inside the chamber. So one question my 10-year-old asked, he said, "Daddy, how do you keep the smoke in there? Isn't all the smoke just going to get out?" But you have this chamber that is filling up with smoke. This is just the release valve. This is just where it's coming out in excess. So as you have this chamber full of smoke, all you have to do is squeeze on the bellows and you get a much thicker cloud of smoke. So it's hard to give you a good example in the wind here. I hope that you see a little bit more about how the smoker works and how it just keeps going. You get a good fire lit in there and things are just going to keep going. See? There we go. I get the turn the vent at the bottom away from the wind so it's not blowing in there so hard, and you can kind of see a little bit more about how the bellows help you get that excess out of there. And if we go ahead and just take a peek, there you go, we can see the smoke going, and it's already been lit. I know the time on the video is going to be less than this, but it's been lit for about 3 minutes now, and there's really nothing that looks more charred than what was charred before I closed the lid. So we can just see. And how interesting is that? I mean, just look at it. You can see the bellows just give a little bit of oxygen to the embers that are in there and create the smoke. All right, well, there you are. That is information on the smoker as I know it. Now, I need to get suited up and do some work. Thank you all for watching. See you next time.